and such knights were put about Arthur as Sir Bodwin of Britain, Sir Kay, Sir Ulfius, Sir Brastias, all these, with many other, were always about Arthur, day and night, till the feast of Pentecost. Chapter 7. How King Arthur was crowned and how he made officers. And at the feast of Pentecost all manner of men assayed to pull at the sword that would assay, but none might prevail but Arthur, and pulled it out for all the lords and commons that were there. Wherefore all the commons cried at once, We will have Arthur unto our king. We will put him no more in delay, for we all see that it is God's will that he shall be our king. And who that holdeth against it, we will slay him. And therewithal they kneeled at once, both rich and poor, and cried Arthur mercy, because they had delayed him so long. And Arthur forgave them, and took the sword between both his hands, and offered it upon the altar, where the archbishop was. And so was he made knight of the best man that was there. And so anon was the coronation made, and there was he sworn unto his lords, and the commons for to be a true king, to stand with true justice from thenceforth the days of his life. Also then he made all lords that held of the crown to come in, and to do service as they ought to do. And many complaints were made unto Sir Arthur of great wrongs that were done since the death of King Uther, of many lands that were bereaved, lords, knights, ladies, and gentlemen, wherefore King Arthur made the lands to be given again unto them that owned them. When this was done, and that king had established all the countries about London, then he let make Sir Kay seneschal of England, and Sir Bodwin of Britain was made constable, and Sir Ulfius was made a chamberlain, and Sir Brastias was made wardens await upon the north from henceforwards, for it was the time the most part of the king's enemies. But within few years after Arthur won all the north of Scotland, and all that were under his obedience, and against the remnants through the noble prowess of himself and the knights of the Round Table. Chapter 8. How King Arthur held in Wales at the Pentecost a great feast, and what kings and lords came to his feast. Then the king removed into Wales, and would cry a great feast, that it should be holden at Pentecost after the incarnation of him, at the city of Carlileon. Until the feast came King Lot of Lothian, and of Orkney, with 500 knights with him. Also there came to the feast King Thurians of Gore, with 400 knights with him. Also there came to that feast King Mentrius of Garlot, with 700 knights with him. Also there came to the feast of the king of Scotland with 600 knights with him, and he was with a young man. Also there came to the feast a king that was for the king with 100 knights, but he and his men were passing well beseen at all points. Also there came the king of Cardos with 500 knights, and King Arthur was glad of their coming, for he weened that all the kings and knights had come for great love, and to have done him worship at his feast. Wherefore the king made great joy, and sent the kings of the knights great presents. But the king would not receive, but rebuked the messenger shamefully, and said they had no joy to receive no gifts of redless boy that come of low blood, and sent him word that they would none of his gifts, but that they would come to give him gifts with hard swords be twisted the neck of the shoulders. And therefore they came thither, so they told the messengers plainly, for it was great shame to all of them to see such a boy to have a rule of so noble all round as this land was. With this answer the messengers departed, and told to King Arthur this answer. Wherefore by the advice of his barons he took him to a strong tower with 500 good men with him, and all the kings aforesaid in a manner laid a siege to for him. But King Arthur was well victualled, and within 15 days there came Merlin among them to the city of Carlion. Then all the kings were passing glad of Merlin, and asked him, For what cause is that boy Arthur made your king? Sirs, said Merlin, I shall tell you the cause, for he is King Uther Pendragon's son, born in wedlock begotten on Igraine, the duke's wife of Tintagel. Then is he a bastard, they said all. Nay, said Merlin, after the death of the duke more than 3 hours was Arthur begotten, and 13 days after King Uther wedded Igraine, and therefore I prove him he is no bastard, and who saith nay, he shall be king and overcome all his enemies, and or he die, he shall be long king of all England, and have under his obeisances Wales, Ireland, and Scotland, and more realms than I will now rehearse. Some of the kings had marvelled at Merlin's words, and deemed well that it should be as he said, and some of them laughed him to scorn as King Lot, and more other called him a witch. But then they accorded with Merlin, and King Arthur should come out and speak with the kings, become safe and to go, save such assurance there was made. So Merlin went on to King Arthur, and told him how he had done, and bade him fear not, but come out boldly and speak with them, and spare them not, but answer them as their king and chieftain, for he shall overcome them all, whether they will or no. Chapter 9. Of the first war that King Arthur had, and how he won the field. Then King Arthur came out of his tower, and had under his gown a jetterant of double mail, and there went with him the Archbishop of Canterbury, and Sir Baldwin of Britain, and Sir Kay, and Sir Brastias. They were the men of most worship that were with him, and when they were met, there was no meekness, but sad words on both sides. But also King Arthur answered them, and said he would make them to bow as he lived. Wherefore they departed with wrath, and King Arthur bade keep them well, and they bade the king keep him well. So the king returned into the tower again, and armed him and all his knights. What will ye do? Said Merlin to the kings. Ye were better for to stand, for ye shall not here prevail, though ye were 10 times so many. Be we well advised to be feared of a Grim Reaper, said King Lot. With that Merlin vanished away, and came to King Arthur, and bade him set on them fiercely. And in the meanwhile there were 300 good men of the best that were with the kings, and went straight unto King Arthur, that comforted him greatly. Sir, said Merlin to Arthur, fight not with a sword that ye had by miracle, till that ye see ye go into the worst, then dry it out, and do your best. For forthwith King Arthur set upon them in their lodging, and Sir Bodwin, Sir Kay, and Sir Brastias slew on the right hand and on the left hand, that it was marvel. And always King Arthur on his horseback laid on with a sword, and did marvellous deeds with his arms, so that many of the kings had great joy of his deeds and hardiness. And then King Lot brake out on the backside, and King with 100 knights, and King Cardos, and set on Arthur fiercely behind him. With that Sir Arthur turned with his knights, and smote behind and before, and every Sir Arthur was in the foremost crest, till his horse was slain underneath him. And therewith King Lot smote down King Arthur, with that his 4 knights received him, and sent him on horseback. Then he drew his sword Excalibur, but it was so bright in his enemies' eyes, that it gave light like 50 torches, and therewith he put them aback, and slew much people. And then the commons of Carlileon arose, and with clubs and staves, and slew many knights, but all the kings held them together with their knights, and were left alive, and so fled and departed. And Merlin came unto Arthur, and counselled him to follow them no further. How Merlin counselled King Arthur, and to stand before King Ban and King Bors of their council taken for the war. So after the feast and journeys, King Arthur drew him unto London, and so by the counsel of Merlin the king let call his barons to council, for Merlin had told the king saying that the 6 kings that made war upon him would in all haste be wrought on him and on his lands. Wherefore the king asked counsel at them all. They could no counsel give, but said they were big enough. He say, Well, said Arthur, I thank you for your good courage, but will he all that loveth me speak of Merlin? Ye know well that he hath done much for me, and he knoweth many things, and when he is afore you, I would that ye pray him heartily of his best advice.